Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I got a new copy of Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. It's a rondel action selection game published by Renegade Games. This is a game where players will be moving their knights and establishing buildings as they travel east across the map. And players want to gain the most influence, and once all influence points in the game are all taken, then the game ends. There are two sides of the main board depending on how many players are playing in the game. And with this also is a set number of influence used during the game depending on how many players. The game uses a rondel for each player placing wedges on each player board, but each location of each wedge is the same from player to player. There are the different buildings that can be placed on your board, and when a building is placed, its reward shows and it's left uncovered underneath the building that you just took off, which is now revealed. Each player will also choose a knight tile, which will give them an ability different from all other players, and the knight tiles will list how many yellow action tokens that knight uses, and maybe some other specifics like where the action tokens are placed, and maybe an action wedge is upgraded, flipping it over to the other side. Everyone has a little perk. Players start on the left side or the west of the board and will take actions to move across, trying to gain the most influence. Players will never fight each other directly as you are all part of the same army, but you want to bring the most glory to your own order. A player might move into a location on the map before another player does, cutting them off and making that other player maybe rethink what they are doing in the game. Players take turns in a clockwise order, and a player will choose one of two possible types of actions until all the influence points are depleted. These actions are to either resolve an action using your rondel or to upgrade a wedge by flipping it over. There are 6 action wedges to choose from, and each wedge has at least one action icon, but when upgraded, there will be 2 icons shown. When resolving an action, you will choose one wedge of your choice with at least one action marker on it, and then you will count up the number of action markers on this wedge, plus any bonuses granted from other locations. When buildings are added to the map, they will reveal these additional bonuses. So again, choose a tile, count how many action markers there are, the yellow markers on it, and you add any bonuses that match that type of action that you're taking, and then you will carry out the action with the calculated strength. There are 5 actions total. When traveling, you'll be able to move your knight or knights, as you will gain more throughout the game, a number of spaces equal to your calculated strength. This number can be split between any number of knights and will move from one hex to another. Extra knights are obtained when building, so watch out, that's how you gain those. And knights can move to any hex with a square in the middle of it, even when an opponent's knight is present there. You calculate movement when leaving a hex, and as it requires 1 travel point to leave any hex. But if a hex space has a Prussian, a Slav, or a Saracen token, it will require 2 travel points to leave it. These tokens can be removed when you take the Crusade action. Now, the muster action allows you to flip over the lowest level face down flag tile if your action marker value plus any of the bonuses from your farms is equal to or greater than the value on that next flag shown. You will take influence from the supply equal to the flag's level, and then you will flip over that tile. Mustering the troops will grant you a +1 for the Crusade action when taken anytime after. The Crusade action lets you remove a Prussian, a Slav, or a Saracen token in a hex where your knight is located. When attacking the Prussians and the Slavs, you will check their track to determine their current strength, which the Saracens always have a strength of 6. They're a little bit different. To complete this action, you must meet or exceed your enemy's strength. You will count your action markers, you will add any bonuses from your mustered troops, and bonuses from your castles. If you win against the Prussians or the Slavs, take the influence tokens from the supply equal to the enemy's strength and then move the corresponding strength token up 1 on their track. If a Saracen was fought, immediately build the next building. Your leftmost building shown on the token for free that is shown on that tile. Or flip over the next troop flag at the top of your player board. Or you can opt not to take the free build action and you can take 3 influence tokens instead. The influence actions will let you take influence from the supply equal to your action marker value plus bonuses from your churches, farms, and banks. Lastly, the build action lets you build a building in a hex. When building, your knight needs to be in the hex where you want to build. No other buildings can be present and no enemies can be there either. You will take the leftmost building that you want to build, check the cost shown on that space, and your action markers plus the bonuses from banks and building bonuses in the hex itself have to be at or above the cost of that building. You will collect influence from the supply equal to the building's banner level. If you unlock a knight, it will go into the hex where the castle is being built. Action markers are cumulative and discounts from the board are also added with any bonuses you obtain. And those are the 5 possible actions. And after doing the action you have chosen, you will take all of the action markers on the wedge and going clockwise, starting with the next wedge, you will distribute 1 marker per wedge, mandala style, until you have dropped off all of the markers. Now, it is possible that you loop back around if you have more than 6 action markers on a tile. So you might be putting more than 1 on a tile. Now, when performing an action with an upgraded wedge, there are 2 actions shown. So now you can split up your action markers however you wish between the 2 actions shown, and then you can carry out both actions in either order. You must complete 1 action before starting the second one, but you can do both. After you have finished, you will distribute the action markers as a collective group, just like normal, putting them around your rondel. Now, the second type of action is upgrading a chosen tile that hasn't been upgraded already, and you will keep all markers on that wedge, and then if you wish, you can pick any one wedge and distribute the action markers on this wedge just like normal. That way, your action markers move during that turn. So, players continue doing these actions and building on the map and crusading across the land, mustering their troops, and gaining influence. The most important thing. When the influence token supply is depleted, you will continue playing until the last player in turn order finishes their turn. The extra influence can be used at this point as players can still gain influence, but the supply was just to trigger the end game. In-game scoring is then performed, and players at this point will have gained influence throughout the game, but also can gain more at the end game. The player to have defeated the majority of Slavs, Prussians, and Saracens will be awarded a tile giving them 5 influence, and the player with the second most gaining a tile giving them 2 more influence each. Then all level 4 buildings will award additional influence, and the level 4 castle awards 4 influence per set of Saracens, Prussians, and Slav tokens. The level 4 church gives you 6 influence just because, and the level 4 farm gives 1 influence for each of your knights on the board plus each troop that you flipped over. The level 4 bank gives you 4 influence for each level 4 building that you have on your board, including this one. The player then with the most influence wins the game. And well, that's Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the individual rondel that each player uses to make certain actions stronger or weaker, really. This rondel takes a pretty straightforward game and adds in a lot of planning and strategy, as you won't want to make certain actions if the strength isn't high enough to do so, or to do what you want. So you have to take actions to move the tokens to the actions that you more want to take. Now, for players who don't do well at planning and don't like to plan ahead, well, they still can get lucky and perform the actions and still progress in the game and still do well, really. So, like my kids could still play this game, maybe just not have as competitive as another player like myself would be. So strategic players can find some satisfaction when they take an action and move certain markers forward to make for their next action more powerful and exactly the amount that they need to do what they want to do for that action. But everyone also has those times where your markers are loaded up on other actions that you don't really want to take, but just eventually you have to do it and move those markers forward so that you can use them elsewhere. And the rondel is the hero for me in this game. And this design also makes it so that you're not stuck with just 1 or 2 choices in the game. You have multiple choices to take each turn. The next highlight is the asymmetric actions provided by the player's knight's order. And I love that these are small changes that give a little perk for that player only, but then another player can do something special as well, but also different from all other players. These abilities can help with strategy, but also change the game each time that you play. The game's player interaction is just where I like it personally. Things are not aggressive, but you are still competing to build on tiles, and the other players are also crusading and driving up the strength of the enemy tokens while you are still trying to manipulate your own rondel to have enough strength so that you can crusade yourself. Or maybe since they crusaded, you can sneak in and help them by building a castle in the region that they just cleared. Now, how do you do that, you ask? Well, remember that the upgrade action, yes, you can split your tokens with any two actions. So one for travel to move to the space and the other to build. Or I'm a big fan of the travel crusade action as well. As you progress through the game, these upgraded tiles will really help you do more on your turn than trying to just find a way to use all your tokens for one single type of action. So there is a lot of good things in this game, and I'm glad Renegade Games picked this up from TMG because it's one of those great, straightforward, easy to teach, easy to learn games with a lot of strategy packed in it. The rondel is nice for that strategy, and the buildings that you unlock first compared to others that you gain for their bonuses, the crusading to gain points. It's just a smooth game. And there is an expansion for the game called Crusaders Divine Influence, which adds some cool things to the game, but I can see this game holding on strong, getting more expansion as we go. And a new board would be nice, I think, with some new actions with a modified rondel, something like that would be awesome for the game. So go on crusades with your family and friends in Crusaders. Thy Will Be Done by Renegade Games.
Again, this is Boardgame Brody, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.